Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now August 15th of 2023, and given that there's a lot of things happening right now with, of course, let's not forget about Snow White 2024, and what Bob Iger and the Disney board have been going through for the past couple of weeks now, where they really are getting themselves into endless damage control to tame the backlash of this movie. And as I said yesterday, we talked about how Bob Iger had made a proposal to the Disney board about really trying to find a way to essentially cut out a lot of material and to really keep the Seven Dwarfs down to a bare minimum, perhaps even down to a mere cameo, which is something that the board is really trying to figure out whether or not they want to pursue that. However, this is where things get even worse. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, the one interesting aspect about Snow White 2024 is the fact that this may very well be an ironic movie. Everything started with Snow White back in 1937. It could very well all end for Disney in 2024 with this movie. Because if the backlash is going to be this bad for Snow White, it could very well ruin a lot of the cinematic releases by Disney and Bob Iger's plans for live-action adaptations. Now, what's interesting is that we know that the Snow White remake is one of the most highly critical movies out there, and there's a real valid reason why. It's not only shifting away from the original 37 tale, but it's also getting rid of a lot of the iconic aspects of it and everything happening with the dwarfs and more. However, with Snow White and its damage control by Disney getting worse behind the scenes, Bob Iger and the board have been engaging in multiple adjustments for this film. Now, one major development has to do with the test screening for this film that is now reportedly causing Mark Webb, the director, to jump in as demanded by Disney to change quite a number of scenes. Recently, a test screening was done for the film that got negative feedback, especially surrounding Gal's performance as the evil queen. However, one sequence in particular that was reportedly the worst scene of all that is now going to be changed is the transformation scene, in which the evil queen transforms into what is referred to as the faux witch, aka the old hag. This transformation scene was described to be gruesome and straight out of a horror movie, as this is how director Mark Webb modeled it. It is said to be a near similar scene in spirit to the Green Goblin transformation scene from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 back in 2014, not to be confused with Spider-Man in 2001 or 2. Now, what's interesting about this, let me pause here for 1 second. Now, we know that Mark Webb got a lot of flack, let's be honest, for the two Amazing Spider-Man movies. I don't know if you guys have seen them. I have, and I just thought they were okay. I mean, they really never stood out to me entirely, but the whole dark and gritty take on it obviously is something that he adopted and wanted to use in Snow White for the Evil Queen's transformation. So basically, if you guys want to take the time after this video, or pause this and check it out now, whatever way, it doesn't matter, go ahead and look up the Amazing Spider-Man 2 Green Goblin transformation scene. The evil queen is supposedly going to transform in that nature, in a very horror, agonizing way, and Disney felt that it was way too out of line by Mark Webb to showcase that to the general public after the test screening went awry. Now, this is where things get bad, because now it's really putting Disney into a tougher situation where they have to water down scenes that were actually reportedly very well directed and very well shot, but acting-wise, Gal's performance was a little, wishy-washy, supposedly. Now, this is where things get even more complicated, alright? Now, after the negative criticism and the concern for younger audiences getting scared away from that actual scene, Disney is now stepping in and forcing Mark Webb to actually strip down the scene and change it entirely through all of the upcoming re-edits that are planned as a preliminary phase to fix the film after the first test screening. Unlike the 1937 original, this transformation sequence goes on quite a bit longer and was aimed to be the scariest moment in a Disney live-action movie that Mark Webb wanted to obtain to really capture the ruthless nature of the character and her evil ways. The scene involved Gal's worst acting, reportedly, screaming out loud with her falling out, of course, and actually losing hair with it turning gray, and her skin beginning to rapidly change and becoming a zombified look and appearance. This was said to be one of Gal's, of course, worst acting sequences performed in a long time, and Webb now has to water down this moment per Disney. There was also a variant of the scene that was shot that had better acting by Gal that is now being discussed to be used in, of course, the alternate way of establishing this sequence as demanded by Disney. Now, here's the thing about this, is that you guys may not know about Mark Webb, but he loves to throw in horror elements into a lot of his movies, such as The Amazing Spider-Man's 1 and 2, and he wanted to do that with Snow White. So we're still going to be getting this transformation scene, but it's going to be watered down. Now, I don't know about you guys, I would love to hear your feedback, but I feel that Disney's overreacting. I'm sure it couldn't have been that horrific to the point where it would scare kids away and they would be closing their eyes and yelling and screaming. I don't believe it would be that bad. It's a Disney movie after all, and trust me, with the live action stuff, we have seen elements of that you would think would scare kids away, but it never did. And so I think that they're just overreacting. That's my overall take on things. Look, it's not like it's something coming out of, let's say, for example, a deep horror film like the many that we have seen, like The Exorcist. You know, it's nothing like that. So I'm sure that Disney is just going way out of line. They're playing things way too safely. They want to just make sure that nothing and absolutely nothing is going to drive any fans away. This way, whoever does see this movie is going to stick around and really give it a positive piece of feedback. That's probably what they're banking on. And they're banking on word of mouth, because they know that the bad far outweighs the good with this movie, and there's no escaping that. Unless they reshoot the entire thing, recast, and just really rename the overall movie. You know, it's kind of funny because the original 37 tale was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and we went over this a couple of weeks ago. We talked about this, about how Disney did not want to throw in the dwarfs as a subtitle because they felt that would be offensive. And that just goes to tell you, they are playing things very safe right off the bat, starting off with the title alone, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago with that. So, again, like I say, I mean, I highly, highly doubt it's as bad as what Disney is making it out to be. And as much as I'm a skeptic and, you know, somebody that is a high critic of Mark Webb as a director, I do actually feel bad for him to a degree. The fact that he has to go through this nonsense by Disney trying to establish something new this late in the game for the movie, and the fact that they have to re-edit the whole scene, dumb it down, water it down, etc., etc. So I would like to hear what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon we hear them moans again.